All right. Shalom, family. It's your brother Kanaiba coming at you once again with this video titled, Whoopi Goldberg is being canceled for so-called anti-Semitic remarks? Or is she another pawn being used for a bigger purpose? Okay, so as you may already know, Whoopi Goldberg has been in the news a lot for the last couple of days, okay, based on some remarks that she made about the so-called Jews, okay? But of course, as we know, the people that she was referring to are not the real Jews, okay? But we're going to get into that further into this video. But the point being is, you know, she's being dragged through the mud right now based on the remarks that she made, okay, when she was on the television show, The View, okay? And, you know, we're going to go over some of those remarks that she made. We're going to watch an actual video about the situation. But, you know, looking at this thing from a spiritual vantage point, it's pretty clear what's going on. Okay, it's no different from the situation that happened with Nick Cannon. Okay, you know, this is really a shaming ritual for her, first and foremost. And then number two, you have to understand that, you know, the so-called powers that be, the elites, they see all these prophecies coming into fruition. And they know, you know, due to these prophecies coming into fruition, that's going to cause more and more, quote unquote, black people, along with Hispanics and Native Americans, to actually wake up to the truth, okay? To question who the real Jews are and things of this nature. So, of course, now they have to make their counter move to pretty much, you know, discourage the true Israelites from, you know, seeking the truth harder and, you know, trying to figure out who they are, okay? So they're using not Oprah, but Whoopi Goldberg as a catalyst for that, okay? So first, they use the Israelite man as the, you know, the test subject, so to speak, or the punching bag, or whatever you want to call them, for this particular situation, which was Nick Cannon, right? But as we already know, the Israelite man is at the bottom of society right now, okay? The Israelite woman is placed above the Israelite man in this wicked, backwards, out of order society, okay? So to really push their point home or drive their point home, what they're going to do now is they're going to use the Israelite woman, who is a notch above the Israelite man in this society. They're going to use her, you know, to make an example out of, okay? If you speak against these so-called Jews, which they're not really the Jews, but if you speak against them, there are going to be consequences, okay? That's for, you know, all the elite, well, not the elite, but all these so-called stars in Hollywood that happen to be Israelites, okay? If you speak against the so-called Jews, you're going to suffer the repercussions, okay? And they want that to trickle down to the common folks, okay? That's what I believe is going on, you know, looking at this thing from a spiritual vantage point, okay? No matter how high the Israelite woman may get in this society, they're still going to remind you that to them, you're still just a nigga, okay? Or whatever derogatory term you want to think of, okay? No matter how you think you've made it in this society, you're still a slave here. And Whoopi Goldberg just got her rude awakening, okay? So now let's go into the actual news report and get some more understanding on the situation that transpired, okay?
Whoopi Goldberg on The View. She's under fire for something she said after a Tennessee school board removed a graphic novel about the Holocaust from its curriculum. Listen to this.
The Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about race.
Ethnicity.
It's about man's inhumanity to man. That's what it's about.
But it's about white supremacy. It's
Well,
about
but
going
it's
after
not- it's
Jews
not about
and
race.
gypsies and
But these are two
Romans.
white groups of people.
Bingo. She has spoken correctly. These are two so-called white groups of people. Okay, that's why she's saying that it's not about race. Okay, they're the same groups of people. Okay, contrary to popular belief. But we're going to get into who these people really are later on in this video. Okay, let's continue.
All right, so others at the table, along with critics, pointed out that the Nazis, in fact, did see Jewish people as an inferior race. On The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, she appeared to stand by what she said. Listen to this.
I was saying, you can't call this racism. This was evil. This wasn't based on the skin.
Have you come to understand that the Nazis saw it as race?
Well,
Because they might, asking the Nazis, they would say, yes, it's a racial issue.
Well, see, this is what's interesting to me, because the Nazis lied. It wasn't. They had issues with ethnicity, not with race, because most of the Nazis were white people, and most of the people they were attacking were white people. So to me...
All right, so Goldberg issued an apology on Twitter last night saying, quote, "I stand corrected. I'm sorry for the hurt that I have caused."
Y'all see that? That goes to show you this is a shaming ritual. Okay? After she had spoken correctly, okay, they were the same groups of people, like I said earlier. Okay? As soon as she made these statements, now she has to come on the back end and apologize for everything that she just said. And she didn't even say anything, hurtful. She didn't say anything really out of pocket. Okay? Again, this is a shaming ritual for her. Okay? And looking at the grand scheme of things, and they're trying to go into the subconscious of the real Israelites, okay, and not question who those people actually are, okay. They're trying to withhold truth from you, okay. That's all this is really going into. But anyway, let's continue.
During her Colbert appearance also last night, Goldberg also indicated that as a black woman, her experience as a black woman has led her to think of race as something that she can see. It's skin.
About skin.
But here's the point that needs to be made. The Holocaust, the Shoah, was not about race. It wasn't about skin color. Race was irrelevant. Hitler, if you read his odious diatribe, Mein Kampf, or if
Mein Kampf was not written by Hitler, contrary to popular belief, okay? Mein Kampf was actually written by a Jesuit priest by the name of Bernard Stempfli. Okay, you can look it up for yourself. Okay, but it really wasn't Hitler that wrote that. It was that Jesuit priest. Okay, but that's neither here nor there. Let's continue.
you can read the Nuremberg laws of Nazi Germany, saw Jews as an inferior race, and they set about to systematically wipe them out off the face of the earth. 6 million souls.
That number is fabricated, okay? Every so many years, that number, it changes. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller, okay? My memory serves me correctly. It started at around 10 million. Then it dropped to 8 million. Now it's 6 million. So, I mean, that number is fabricated. It gets smaller and smaller every so often, okay? You know, I don't think it was nearly 6 million. You know, it was probably barely 1 million if I were a betting man. But, you know, I mean, they do this. They amp up these numbers to try to impersonate prophecy, to try to make these people seem like sympathetic figures when they're not, okay? They're trying to impersonate prophecy to make you think that they're the true children of Israel, okay? That's what the Balfour Declaration was about, okay? But them being placed in the land of Israel in 1948 was not a fulfillment of prophecy, okay? First and foremost, it's supposed to be the Messiah or the Mashiach, which is Yahweh Shai, that places the true children of Israel back in the land. That's number one. And then when the true children of Israel are there, it's supposed to be nothing but righteousness there. And as you know, one of the biggest sodomite parades is held in the land of Tel Aviv, Israel. Okay? And then once the true children of Israel is there, there shall be no more war amongst the nations. okay? And all you've been hearing as of late is about wars and rumors of wars. These people are not the true children of Israel, okay? I mean, let's think about this for a minute, okay? When you look at the chart that I post before each and every one of my videos, right? All 12 tribes. We could just take one tribe out of that. Let's take the tribe of Gad, okay? The Native American Indians. We know that approximately 77 million of them were, executed, were slaughtered by the English, right? Now, if you take all 12 tribes on that chart, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, if I were a betting man, I would say over the course of maybe 500 years, probably over 1 billion of them were slaughtered compared to 6 million. Okay? But anyway, let's get back to the video. Okay?
And
he
so
called it an inferior race repeatedly.
he called it an
clearly
inferior
about race for him.
repeatedly.
Right. Yes.
And you diminish the uniquely Jewish horror and tragedy of which they've endured for millennia by trying to say that it's an all lives matter kind of a situation.
Right. But so the millennia is the key point here, right? So race is a social construct. It's an idea. We lump people together. We say that's one race. It's not a biological fact. Right?
Now, when dealing with race, he's actually correct, okay? The concept of race is a social construct, okay? When dealing with that guy, what's his name? Blumenbach and the 3-race theory, okay? Dealing with eugenics and things of this nature. Yeah, that's a social construct, okay? But when dealing with things like nationhood and you're dealing with ethnicity, that actually is a biological fact, and more importantly, is biblical, okay? Your ethnicity, okay, is determined by whoever your father is, okay? It really has nothing to do with your mother. Your mother is the ground in which the seed is planted, okay? But the seed is the very being of that particular individual, and we know that the seed comes from the man, okay? There's no such thing as a mixed person, okay? That's pure foolishness. Whatever your father is, that's what you are, okay? And that is a biblical and biological fact, okay? But anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the video, okay?
So the fact of prejudice against Jews for millennia has lumped them together, regardless of whether or not they're living in Venezuela or Iran or Germany, for that matter. They're made into a people by the rest of us, and so that reality exists, and Whoopi seemed to want to forget about it.
Well, now she's making the point that she should have made both points.
Should have made both points.
Yeah,
exactly.
that she should have made both points, that it's about race, that it's also about the inhumanity.
It's also about
and
evil as well.
She had a conversation with Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL, who also informed her of what we just spoke about, that this was a uniquely Jewish tragedy. And as you pointed out, as I pointed out, that's something that they've endured for a millennia. This is something that Jews have had to deal with.
And it wasn't like you could renounce Judaism and then be saved by the Nazis, right? They saw it as a permanent fact.
That's
of their
exactly right.
existence.
That's exactly right.
An immutable characteristic.
She did issue an apology on Twitter last night.
All right, so moving forward from the video, we're going to go into an actual article from endtimeheadline.org about the same situation, okay? And now, since we watched the video first, I'm not going to go through the whole article, okay? But it's just, it's one particular slide I actually want to go over because there is an esoteric component to this whole thing as well, okay? So we're going to get into that right now. And the title of the article, of course, says, Whoopi Goldberg sparks firestorm of outrage after saying Holocaust was not about race. And, technically it wasn't. But, we already went over the video. And now let's get into a specific part of this article. Like I said, I'm not going to read the whole thing since we already watched the video. But it is a specific part in this article that I want to touch on. Okay, so now let's scroll up and let's look at that particular part of the article. Okay, so scrolling up a bit here, and this is the part of the article I want to touch on. And it reads, BBC News went on to report that the school board said it banned the book. And this whole thing, let me pause right here. This whole thing is actually about a book that was published. It's called Mouse, okay? And it's spelled M-A-U-S, okay? About the Holocaust, right? So that's what this whole thing really started over, okay? And we're going to look at the cover of that book because there's an esoteric component to that as well. But let me start over. It says BBC News went on to report that the school board said it banned the book because its profanity, nudity, and depiction of suicide were inappropriate for, watch this, 13-year-olds. Okay? Then it goes on to say, Goldberg, a 66-year-old Oscar-winning actress who has been on The View since 2007, told her co-host. Okay, so let's pause right there. So first, let's point out that BBC News made it a point to mention that these were 13-year-olds, okay, that the Tennessee school was dealing with, right? Now, we know the number 13 on the left-hand side is a significant number to them, okay? If my memory serves me correctly, the number 13, of course, represents what? The divine serpent, okay? If my memory serves me correctly, okay? And then it points out the age of Whoopi Goldberg, in which she is 66 years old. Now, the number 66 represent what? The horned deity Molech or Baal. Okay, that number is an association to the bull god Molech. Okay, so like I said before, you know, there's an esoteric component to this as well, right? And we know it's also centered around the number 22. Okay, I told you 2022 is going to be a doozy. And there's a lot of things being centered around this number 22, okay? And we know she's 66 years old, which is just 22 times 3, right? And, you know, not to digress too much, but, you know, sticking with this number 22, you know, even the upcoming Super Bowl that's coming up, you know, that Super Bowl is heavily centered around the number 22, especially dealing with the LA Rams and Odell Beckham Jr. Okay, it's heavily centered around the number 22. You know, it's even a biblical component to it if you really look at it, because that particular game, it's a part of it that's centered around the quote unquote famine. Okay. But here again, I'm strongly thinking about doing a video about it simply because of that, because of the esoteric component and that biblical component as well. Okay, but not to digress too much, but you know, since we're on the topic of the number 22. Okay. All right. So from here, let's move forward to the cover of the actual book that's causing all this controversy. Okay. And as we see here, like I said before, the name of the book is Mouse, but, you know, it's not spelled like, you know, the average mouse. They spelled it M-A-U-S, right? Now, it's a lot going on in this particular book cover, right? As we see right off the bat, they have a color scheme of red, white, and black, okay, which is for the Black Mass, right? Dealing with sacrifice to who? To Saturn, right? Or the goat god Pan, right? That's the first thing that I actually noticed when looking at this particular cover, right? Now, when you look at the word mouse, okay, which they spelled it M-A-U-S, the word mouse, of course, is in red, right? Then when you look at the actual mouse or the actual mice in this particular picture, they're depicted as what? Blue, right? So you have mouse and mouse, okay? One red, one blue. That represents what? The coming together of opposites, okay? When you have the red and the blue come together, it comes together to form what? The divine purple, which represents who? The divine child or the divine transgender, the rebus, right? Or in ancient Kemet, I believe he was known as Atum, the divine he-she, okay? So that's what that's going into, okay? And since we're on the topic of the divine purple, we know that quite possibly one of the most famous movies that Whoopi Goldberg played in was that, that man-hating feminist lesbian movie known as The Color Purple. Okay. And it just so happens that we know Whoopi Goldberg happens to be a man-hating lesbian feminist. Okay. But that's what that movie, The Color Purple, was really about. Okay. And, there's a reason why they had her play in that movie alongside Oprah Winfrey. Okay. I think that's why I accidentally said her name earlier. Okay. Because I was thinking about that movie. Okay. But they both played in that movie and for a specific reason. Okay. It's no coincidence that fast forward to 2020 and both of those women are viewed as microcosms of the so-called Mother Goddess. Okay. So now let's move forward and let's put more of our attention upon these imposters, calling themselves Jews. Okay. And let's expose that. Okay, let's get into who they really are, okay, biblically. All right. So as you see, I actually have a split screen right here, okay, with two words. The first word and the definition, of course, is for the word Israelite. Okay. And then on the bottom, we have the definition for the word Israeli. Okay. Now, a lot of people may, get mistaken or be mistaken and think that these two words actually mean the same thing, but they don't. Okay, they don't have the same meaning. Okay, and we're gonna get into this because when you look at the people that call themselves Jews over in the land of Israel right now, they refer to themselves as Israeli. Okay, but we over here, okay, the people upon that sign that I always post, we refer to ourselves as Israelites. Okay, and there's a reason for that. Okay. All right, so let's deal with the top definition, which is Israelite. And it reads, a descendant of Jacob. Okay, let's pause right there because that is probably what's most significant. Okay, an Israelite is a person that is a descendant of Jacob. Keep that in mind. Okay, make a mental note of that as we read the next definition. But let's continue with this one. So it goes on to say, especially a member of the Hebrew people who inhabited the ancient kingdom of Israel. Make a mental note of that as well. Okay, it said the Hebrew people who inhabited the ancient kingdom of Israel. Okay, so let's drop down to the definition of the word Israeli. And it reads, a native or inhabitant of modern Israel. Okay, now two things I want you to notice. Number one, it didn't say anything about being a descendant of Jacob. That's number one. It has nothing to do with their descent, okay? Because they are not the Jews of antiquity. That's number one. Then number two, it says that they are natives of modern day Israel, okay? But remember, the definition for Israelite dealt with the Hebrew people that inhabited ancient Israel. Okay, because the Israelites are the direct descendants of Jacob, and we are the true children of Israel and Jews of antiquity. Okay, that's the difference in those definitions. And that's why they refer to themselves as Israeli, and we refer to ourselves as Israelites. Okay. Now, what is the importance of, again, being a direct descendant of Jacob? Well, that's what makes you the true Jews or the true Israelites. Okay, let's take a look at the chart that I've been talking about. Okay, now, to give you a quick backstory, okay, I talked about the importance of being a descendant of Jacob. Okay, Jacob, who was one of the fathers of the promise, right? Now, when you read the story, when Jacob had his encounter with that angel, and I believe it's Genesis, the 32nd chapter. Okay, Genesis chapter 32. He had that encounter with the angel, and at that point, the angel actually changed his name. Okay, Jacob's name was changed from Jacob to Israel. Okay, in the ancient Hebrew, it's Yashar'Allah, right? And it means he is a prince of the power. Okay, when you actually put it together, Yashar'Allah means he prince power. Okay, so when you actually put it together, it means he is a prince of the power. Okay, that's what Yashar'Allah or Israel actually means. Okay, so Jacob's name was changed to Israel, and Israel had 12 sons. Okay, and you know, his 12 sons, they are the patriarchs of the 12 tribes of Israel, of course. Okay, so in order to be an Israelite, you have to be a direct descendant of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, and you have to be a descendant of one of his 12 sons. Okay, and the people over there in Israel, referring to themselves as Jews, they don't descend from Jacob and one of his 12 sons. They just do not. Okay. Now, when you look at the top 3 tribes at the top of this chart, okay, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, okay, which consist of who? The American blacks, the West Indian blacks, and the Haitians, okay? Those 3 tribes, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, they actually make up who are known as the Jews, okay? All 12 tribes are not known as Jews, but the top 3, which is the southern kingdom of Israel, okay? And Judah was the head tribe over the southern kingdom when you actually look at the history, okay? Now, the word Jew, of course, is short for Judah, okay? Now, Judah in the ancient Hebrew is pronounced Yahwadah, okay? Now, Yahwadah, the meaning for that word is Yahweh's praise, okay? Now, we know Yahweh is the name of the Most High, right? So Yahwadah means Yahweh's praise, okay? That's the name that was given to Judah, right? So these people, when they call themselves Jews, they're saying they're Yahweh's praise, they're the Lord's praise. And let me tell you, they are anything but that. Okay, those people are not Yahweh's praise. Okay, we are. All right. Now, from there, okay, let me put this disclaimer out for anybody who wants to speak against this chart and the people that are on it. Okay, there are more than enough videos. There are a whole plethora of videos out there explaining this chart and, you know, explaining who they are and why they belong to each tribe. Okay, so if you got anything negative to say or anything like that, let me give you a fair warning. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to block you. Okay, because I do not have time for a carnal, color-struck Negro who thinks that all 12 tribes only have one phenotype. I don't have time for that, and I'm not arguing with you. Okay, you can take the foolishness someplace else, but my comment board is not the place for that. Okay, so now let's actually get into the scriptures. Okay, and let's find out who those people actually are who are calling themselves Jews, and those people who occupy the land of Israel today. Okay, because the people over there right now, they are not the true Jews. They're not the true Israelites. They are imposters. Okay, so now let's get into a few precepts to prove that. Okay, now what we're about to read is the birth of the children of Isaac and Rebekah. Okay, and you know, a lot of times, like I always say, the left-hand side is meant to mimic the right-hand side, okay? In Hollywood, they always use this this narrative or this story dealing with a good twin and a bad twin, okay? But, we know that they get that from the Bible, okay, which the Bible we know is a true story, okay? But a lot of the concepts in Hollywood actually stem from the Bible, and we're about to read that, okay? So this is Genesis chapter 25, starting at verse 21, and it reads, "And Isaac entreated Yahweh for his wife, because she was barren," okay? She couldn't have children. "And Yahweh was entreated of him, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived." Okay, so that goes to show you that the scriptures are true when it says the prayers of a righteous man availeth much. Okay, so what was going on here is the fact that, Isaac, his wife, Rebekah, was barren. She couldn't have children at the time. So, he went to go inquire about the situation to Yahweh, and Yahweh answered his prayer, and, Rebekah was able to conceive. Okay, so moving forward, this is verse 22, and it reads, "And the children struggled together within her, and she said, If it be so, why am I thus?" Okay, so she's pretty much asking, if this is really meant to be, okay, why are these children struggling within me? Okay, why are they fighting within my womb? Okay, that's what Rebekah is asking right now. Okay, it says, "And she went to inquire of Yahweh." Okay, so now let's move forward and let's see what happens. Okay, or let's see the answer that Yahweh actually gives to Rebekah. Okay, so moving forward, this is verse 23, and it reads, "And Yahweh said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger." Okay, so, right off rip, what is the first thing that we see? Okay, Yahweh told Rebekah what? That 2 nations are in her womb. Okay, so we're about to see the birth of 2 separate nations of people. And actually, these are the 2 last nations to actually come into existence when you look at the table of nations in the Bible. Okay, and then it goes on to say what? It says, "And 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels." Now notice it said 2 manner of people, meaning they're going to be completely different, okay, in every way. And remember, I told you, Hollywood always gets this concept of good twin and evil twin. They always use that concept, but they get it from the Bible. Okay, you're about to see this. One is going to be the good twin, and one is going to be the evil twin. Okay, then it goes on to say what? "And the one people shall be stronger than the other people." Now, this should be pretty, self-explanatory. Okay, when you look at any avenue of life, be it sports, music, acting, dancing, even when you get into academia, okay, who dominates those fields? Okay, it's us. Okay, the people who are known as so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Okay, we are the ones that dominate that field over our quote-unquote twin brother, which, again, we're not going to leave it to suspense, which is Esau, who better known today as the so-called white man, the Caucasian man. Okay, because remember, it says that 2 manner of people shall be separated, meaning these twins are not identical. Okay, but we're going to get into that here in just a minute. Okay, but like it was saying, one people shall be stronger than the other. Just look at any avenue of life, and blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we dominate. Okay, so the last part of the verse says what? "And the elder shall serve the younger." Okay, so whichever one comes out first, out of her womb first, which that would be the elder, that particular child is meant to serve the younger, okay, in the grand scheme of things, okay? And now we're about to read further, and we're going to find out who actually came out first, because whoever came out first, that child is made to serve the younger in the grand scheme of things, okay? So let's continue reading, and let's see, let's get some more of this prophecy. Okay, so moving forward, this is verse 24, and it reads, "And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb." Now, based upon the verse above that, what did we already read? That 2 manner of people shall be separated from her bowels, right? So that should let you know that these twins are not identical, because it's 2 manner of people. They're different. Okay, these twins are not identical. Okay, but anyway, let's move forward, and you're gonna see why I say that. Okay, verse 25, and it reads, "And the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau." Okay, so the beginning of verse 25 says what? And the first came out red. Okay, now why is that? Okay, because you can actually see the blood through their skin. Okay, and when we get further into this verse, you're gonna understand why you can see the blood through their skin. Okay, just think about why, where you get the term redneck from. Okay, that didn't just come out of nowhere. Okay. Then the next part says what? All over like a hairy garment, right? So not only are these particular people red, they're also red and hairy. Okay, now this is a process of elimination. Okay, okay, you should already know who fits this description. Okay, so it goes on to say what? And they called his name Esau. Okay, now in the ancient Hebrew, Esau is pronounced Aisha, if I'm not mistaken. And the meaning for the name Aisha is wasted away is he. Okay, wasted away is he. Now, why was he called wasted away? Okay, because when he came out of his mother's womb, he didn't have any skin pigmentation. Okay, he didn't have any melanin. Okay, he came out of the womb as one that was already dead or wasted away. Okay, when somebody dies, they start to lose their skin pigmentation. They get pale, right? So now you should understand why it says he was red, okay? Because you can see the blood through his skin because he didn't have any melanin or skin pigmentation, okay? What you're reading about is the birth of the Caucasian race, okay? And it's not just to pick on them, you know. All nations have a biblical name and biblical origins, okay? What we're reading just so happens to be the origins of the Caucasian race, okay? So moving forward, this is verse 26, and it reads, "And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them." Okay, so what do we notice in the beginning of verse 26? Okay, it says, and after that his brother came out, meaning Jacob came out next, okay, which is a totally different nation of people. Okay, this is the birth of the people known today as blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Okay, we come from Jacob. Okay, but it says, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel. Now, I want you to make a mental note of that, and if you can, write it down, because that is very, very important. Okay, it's very significant. Okay, because it's going to go into a prophecy that we're going to read about later on. Okay, this actually represent something, okay? When Esau was born, Esau came out of the womb first, and then Jacob came out and he took hold of Esau's heel. He came out with his hand, grabbing Esau's heel. That's symbolic of something. It's very important. That's why I say make a mental note and write it down. Okay. And so now, let's move forward from here. Okay. Because what I'm doing right now is I'm laying the foundation for what we're about to read here in a minute, in Ezekiel chapter 36. Okay. If I don't lay down the foundation for Esau and who he is, you're not going to understand the prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 36, dealing with the imposters that occupy the land of Israel today. Okay. So moving forward, this is Genesis chapter 36, starting at verse 8. And it reads, "Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir." Esau is Edom. Okay. So as we look here, the first part of verse 8 says what? It says, "Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir." Okay. It should let you know something, that these particular people, they are the original cavemen. Okay, they are mountain dwellers. Okay, people don't understand that the Bible, it's not a fairy tale book. Okay, it's a book of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, a book of laws, a book of prophecy, and not only that, it is a history book. Okay. This is letting you know that, they are the original cavemen. Okay, they dwelt in caves at this point, and even further down the line, when you go into what was known as the Dark Ages. Okay, when we actually ruled Europe. Okay, black people actually ruled Europe during the Dark Ages, and during that time, most of the Caucasians, they actually dwelled in caves. Okay, this is a quick history lesson. Okay, and of course, they accumulated a lot of different diseases when they were there. Okay, and eventually they left the mountains and came, and they spread a lot of those diseases amongst the nobles, which was us, the nobles of Europe. Okay, one of the main diseases, that being lice. Okay, the bubonic plague, or the plague of rats, is not what struck during the Dark Ages. Okay, it wasn't rats. Okay, that plague was lice. Okay, remember, Esau came out what? He came out red and hairy. Okay, where does lice come from? Do the math. Okay, here again, this is a history lesson. Okay, but getting back to the verse, of course, it says, "Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir," and then watch this. It says Esau is Edom. Okay, now the word Edom, it means red. Okay, in the ancient Hebrew, that's what that means. Okay, it means red. Okay, so for those who are not too familiar with the truth, you may hear a lot of us talk about Edom, or refer to certain people as Edomites. Okay, Edomites are Caucasians. That's the biblical name of the descendants of Esau. They're Edomites, as we're going to see in the next verse. Okay, so verse 9, it reads, "And these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir." Okay, so like I just said, the people known biblically as Edomites, okay, they're the descendants of Esau. Okay, and today they are the people known as Caucasians. Okay, but like I said before, I'm laying the foundation because we're about to go into a prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 36. And all of this is to deal with those people calling themselves Jews. Okay, I used this situation with, what's her name? Whoopi Goldberg to actually teach this lesson. Okay? So moving forward, this is Ezekiel chapter 36 and verse 1. And it reads, "Also, thou son of man, prophesy unto the mountains of Israel, and say, Ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of Yahweh." Okay, so what we're reading right now is a future prophecy, and it's about the land of Israel. Okay, so this is verse 2, and it reads, "Thus saith the Lord thy power, because the enemy has said against you, Aha, even the ancient high places are ours in possession." So as you see, the middle of the verse talks about how the enemy have said against the land of Israel, Aha, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. So right now, the enemy, whoever this enemy is, they are the ones that possess the land of Israel today. Okay. Now, when you go into, I believe it is Psalms chapter 83, it talks about the enemies of Yahweh. Okay, the different nations that are considered the enemies of Yahweh. When you look at Psalms 83, and at the top of the list are the Edomites, the children of Esau. Okay, that's biblical. That's not Kaniba saying this. This is biblical. Okay, so this should give you an indication about who this enemy is we're reading about in verse 2. Okay, but anyway, let's move forward. So now this is verse 3, and it reads, "Therefore prophesy and say, Thus saith the Lord thy power, because they have made you desolate and swallowed you up on every side, that ye might be a possession unto the residue of the heathen." Okay, now we know in this particular context, the heathens are people outside of the children of Israel. They're not Israelites. Okay, so the land of Israel is a possession to the residue of the heathen right now. Okay, and it says, "And you are taken up in the lips of talkers, and are an infamy of the people." Now, what is that going into? How this land is taken up in the lips of talkers. Okay, we should understand this because the land of Israel is always in the news. Okay, people are always talking about that land because, all nations of people, they understand that there's something special about that land. Okay, the Bible refers to the land of Israel as what? Holy. Okay, it's supposed to be holy, and meaning it's separate for the Most High Yahweh's use. Okay, that's why it's always fights over that land. Okay, so it's always in the lips of talkers. That land is always being talked about. Okay, so moving forward, this is verse 4, and it reads, "Therefore, ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord God," or the Lord thy power. "Thus saith the Lord thy power to the mountains, and to the hills, to the rivers, and to the valleys, to the desolate waste, and to the cities that are forsaken, which became a prey and derision to the residue of the heathen that are round about thee." So we're seeing that the land of Israel became a prey to the heathen, the non-Israelites. Okay, and not just any non-Israelites, but a specific people. And we're about to find out who they are. Okay, because whoever these people are, they're the ones that are posing as Jews today. Okay, so now let's move forward. All right, so this is verse 5. Now pay close attention. And it reads, "Therefore, thus saith the Lord thy power, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen." And remember, it's the residue of the heathen that occupy the land, right? Now watch this. Let's see who these heathen are. And against all Idumea. Okay, now let's finish the verse out. We're coming right back there. Which have appointed my land into their possession, with the joy of all their heart, and with despiteful minds, to cast it out for a prey. So, the middle of the verse, as we see, it talks about all Idumea. Okay, Idumea. Whoever the Idumeans are, they are the ones that have appointed the Lord's land into their hand. Okay, so now it would behoove us to find out who are the Idumeans. So what is Idumea? Who is this? Okay, so now let's go into the blue letter and find out who Idumea is. Okay. All right, so this is the blue letter. And of course, it's the same verse we just left off at, Ezekiel 36 and verse 5. Now, if you look more towards the middle of the verse, you'll see the word Idumea to the left right there in the middle of the verse, right? And it has a concordance number right next to it, okay? Which is Strong's H123, okay? So now we're going to click on that and we're going to get the definition of what Idumea actually means. Okay? Because remember, whoever the Idumeans are, they are the ones that possess the land of Israel right now. So the true children of Israel are not in the land right now, but we're going to find out who actually is. Okay? All right, so now we've clicked on the Strong's Concordance number for Idumea, which we said was Strong's H123, right? And would you looky here, okay? The transliteration for Idumea is what? Edom, okay? Now we've already established who Edom is, okay? Remember we read Genesis chapter 36, and it said Esau is Edom. Okay, he's the forefather of the Edomites, and we've already established that the Edomites are the Caucasians. Okay, that's who occupy the land of Israel today. This is why Whoopi Goldberg said that both groups, Hitler and those so-called Jews, which they're not Jews, but she said they're both white people. Okay, and she was correct. Okay, the people over there right now, they're Caucasians. Okay, according to what we've read, according to the Bible. Okay, so now let's move forward. Okay, so now this is the Strong's definition for the word Idumea, which we know the transliteration is Edom. Okay, and it reads from H122, and it says, look at that, red. Remember, I told you Edom means red. Okay. Then it goes on to say, see Genesis 25 and 25. We already read that. That's dealing with the birth of Esau. Remember, it said he came out red all over, like in hairy garment. We read that. So it goes on to say, Edom, the elder twin brother of Jacob. Not only is he the elder twin brother, he's the evil twin brother of Jacob. Okay? So it goes on to say what? Hence, the region Idumea occupied by him. Edom, Edomites, Idumea. Okay? So now, let's move forward. Okay, so now we're going into the outline of biblical usage. And of course, it says Edom equals red. And it goes on to say, point A, it says Edom. Point B says Edomite, Idumean, descendants of Esau. So it gets no clearer than that. The Idumeans are descendants of Esau. And those are the people that occupy the land of Israel today. not the children of Israel, because remember, the children of Israel are direct descendants of Jacob, the twin brother of Esau. Okay, so let's look at point C. It says land of Edom, Idumea. It says land south and southeast of Palestine. Okay, so now that we have that information, okay, because remember, this is why I said I had to lay the foundation about who Esau is in order for you to understand the prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 36. Okay, so now let's move forward. Okay, now this is Luke chapter 21 and verse 24. Let's get our Lord and Savior, Yahushua, speaking about what's going to happen in the future with the land of Jerusalem. Okay, and it reads, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, talking about the children of Israel, or the Jews, right? And it says, and shall be led away captive into all nations. Okay, so you can link that up with Deuteronomy 28, and I think round about, what was it, verse 64, it talks about us being led away captive into all nations. And when we get there, we're gonna, serve other gods of wood and stone, if my memory serves me correctly. But anyway, it goes on to say what? And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Okay, so towards the end of the verse, what does it say? It says, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles. Okay, what is that talking about? It's letting you know that in the last days, the land of Jerusalem is going to be occupied by Gentiles, which are non-Israelite nations in this context. Okay, then it goes on to say what? Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So up until a certain point, the land of Jerusalem is going to be occupied by Gentiles, right? And we've already established who those Gentiles are. Okay, it's the Idumeans, the Edomites, which are Caucasians. They are going to occupy Jerusalem until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Now we got to find out what that's talking about. What did Yahushua mean when he said, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled? Okay, let's get some understanding on that. Now, remember, I told y'all to make a mental note of something, right? And remember, I said, write it down if you can. Okay, now we're back where I told you to make a mental note of something. Okay, because, maybe you didn't remember. So we'll go back there. So remember what this verse said. It said, and after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel. Okay, referring to Jacob. Okay, that's the part I said make a mental note of and write it down if you can, because it's very, very important and very, very significant. Okay, I told you that this birth and how it happened represents something. It represents a future prophecy. Okay, and it goes into what we just read about Yahushua and what he said about the land of Jerusalem. Okay, it's about to come full circle. Okay, because remember, we got to find out what is the time of the Gentiles being fulfilled. What is that talking about? What did Yahushua mean when he said that? Okay, so now let's get the answer. Okay, so this is 2nd Ezra chapter 6, starting at verse 7. And it reads, then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of times, or the parting asunder of the times? or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? Okay, so we have the prophet Esdras or Ezra having a conversation with the angel, I believe it's Uriah. Okay, and he's asking the angel a question. Now he said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times? What does it sound a lot like? Remember, Yahushua talked about the time of the Gentiles being fulfilled. That's really what this is going into. That's the parting asunder of the times. The time of the Gentiles being fulfilled. Okay. He goes on to say, or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? What is that going into? Okay, let's not leave the suspense there. It's talking about the end of the world. The end of one world and the beginning of another world. That's what that's going into. Okay, that's what he's asking about. Okay, so now let's move forward. So this is verse 8, and it reads, and he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. What now do you understand why I said make a mental note of that? Okay, it's talking about exactly what I said make a mental note of. Okay, what I said write down. When Esau was born, and then right after that Jacob was holding on to Esau's heel. I said that represents something. Okay, that was symbolic of the end of one world and the beginning of another. And we're going to see it plainly in the next verse. Okay, that's why the angel used that as an example. It represents something. Okay, so moving forward, this is the icing on the cake. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and verse 9, and it reads, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Okay, so that birth, the birth of those two twins, that's how significant it was. And the way it happened was very significant. This is what it represented. This is why Esau had to come out first. He represented the end of one world. Or, well, let me not jump the gun, but it represents the end of one world. And then Jacob came out of the womb holding his heel, which represented what? The beginning of a new world that follows, okay? And that new world is the world that Jacob is going to rule over forevermore, okay? The children of Israel, okay? But right now, the world that we're in right now is ruled over by Esau, the children of Edom, the Caucasians, okay? This is what Yahushua meant when he said Jerusalem would be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Meaning the Most High Yahweh, he gave certain Gentile nations a specific time to rule, starting with ancient Egypt all the way up to America. Okay. And again, Esau, or the Caucasians, they would be the last Gentile nation to rule before the end of this world. And then after that, Jacob, or the children of Israel, would rule the world to follow. Okay, that's what Yahushua meant when he said Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. The time of the Gentiles is fulfilled once Esau is taken out of power, okay? And that's how you know we're in the end of the world, because Esau is ruling right now. As we see in 2nd Ezra 6 and 9, it's clearly showing you that Esau, or the children of Edom, would be the last Gentile nation to rule this world. Then it's over for the Gentiles, okay? The rightful people are going to rule the world forevermore, which are the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. Okay? But anyway, I believe this is actually a good place to actually end the video. And again, the title of the video is Whoopi Goldberg is being canceled for so-called anti-Semitic remarks. Or is she another pawn being used for a bigger purpose? Okay. And I know this video was pretty lengthy. But, you know, sometimes it's just how the spirit moves, okay? You know, I saw a good opportunity, you know, to use this situation as a teaching tool, okay? You know, dealing with this situation with Whoopi Goldberg, you know, what they're really doing with her. And then, you know, exposing who those imposters are that's in the land of Israel today, okay? That feel the need to scream anti-Semitism to, you know, everybody. And again, they're not even the real children of Israel. They're not the real Jews, okay? But, you know, this, like I said, the video was lengthy, but it was definitely worth it, okay? So, as always, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Ruach Kodash. I want to thank all you brothers and sisters for tuning in. And until next time, Shalom, family.